Single mom waitress brought her twins to work, one called a billionaire daddy, and her life fell apart instantly. The cafe went dead silent. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. Coffee cups froze halfway to lips. All eyes turned to the small girl standing in front of the man in the expensive suit. "Daddy, you came back." Ivy's voice rang out with the absolute certainty only a 5-year-old could possess. Her tiny hand reached for his, her eyes, identical to his own, staring up with recognition that shouldn't be possible. Grant Holloway, billionaire real estate magnate, stood frozen. The man who commanded boardrooms with unwavering confidence now trembled before a child he'd never met. Mara's voice cut through the silence, sharp with panic. "Ivy, no. Come here. Right now." But Luna was already scrambling out of the booth, staring at Grant with the same intense focus as her sister. "He has our eyes, Mommy. The same green. The same shape." Grant's face had gone pale. His lips moved but no sound came out. Then, barely a whisper. "Mara. Are they mine?" The coffee pot slipped from Mara's trembling hands, shattering against the floor. Hot liquid spread across worn linoleum. Nobody moved to clean it up. Phones were already out, recording, capturing the moment a single mother's carefully hidden past exploded into public view. "Are they mine?" Mara couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. 6 years of invisible safety shattered by 2 words from her daughter's innocent mouth. Welcome to Mr. Stevens Stories, where we bring you powerful, life-changing tales that will make you laugh, cry, and see the world differently. If you love stories with heart, kindly hit that subscribe button right now and help this channel grow. This really means a lot to me and the growth of this channel. Thank you so much as you subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this incredible journey. Now, let me take you back to where this all began. Mara Ellis had perfected the art of being invisible. In the 6 years since that flood-ravaged night in the city, she'd built her entire existence around one principle. Stay small, stay safe, stay forgotten. The Harbor Bell Cafe in Willow Creek became her sanctuary. A place where regulars knew her smile but never her story, where coffee orders mattered more than questions, where she could raise Luna and Ivy in blessed anonymity. The cafe sat on the quiet edge of town, overlooking the river that had nearly destroyed everything 6 years ago. Its faded blue awning fluttered in morning breezes. Mismatched chairs surrounded tables worn smooth by decades of elbows and coffee cups. The espresso machine hissed and gurgled like an old friend. The scent of fresh baked muffins mixed with strong coffee created an atmosphere of comfort that kept locals coming back. Mara worked the morning shift, her movements efficient and practiced. Balancing plates, remembering orders, offering smiles that never quite reached her eyes. She'd learned to be pleasant without being personal. Friendly without being familiar. The twins were 5 now, mirror images of each other with dark curls that caught the morning light and eyes that held mysteries Mara wasn't ready to unlock. They'd become fixtures at the cafe, coloring quietly in the corner booth during her shifts, their laughter a familiar soundtrack to the clinking of dishes. "Mama, can we have pancakes?" Luna asked one Tuesday morning, her crayon paused mid-stroke over a drawing of what appeared to be a purple elephant riding a bicycle. "After the breakfast rush, sweetheart." Mara replied, balancing 3 plates along her arm with practiced ease. Her voice carried that particular gentleness mothers develop when their children are their entire world. Soft but unshakable, warm but edged with exhaustion only other single parents would recognize. Ivy looked up from her coloring book, pressing her nose against the window. "The man outside has a fancy car." Mara's hands trembled slightly. The plates rattled. She steadied herself against the counter, forcing her breathing to slow. Fancy cars meant wealthy customers. Wealthy customers meant questions she couldn't answer, attention she couldn't afford, memories she'd spent 6 years trying to bury. Lots of people have nice cars, baby. Mara said, her voice carefully neutral. But her heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms grew slick with sweat. Every instinct screamed at her to grab the girls and disappear into the kitchen until whoever it was left. She'd been 23 when the flood hit. It started as heavy rain, the kind that made people complain about ruined picnics and cancelled ball games. By evening, it had become something else entirely. Something terrifying. The levees that protected the city, old and poorly maintained, couldn't hold against the relentless pressure. Mara had been across town for a corporate event she was planning. A hotel grand opening. She'd spent months coordinating every detail. The venue was perfect. The guest list impressive. Everything was supposed to go flawlessly. Then the sirens started. Evacuation orders came too late. Water poured through streets faster than anyone anticipated. Mara found herself trapped with dozens of other people in the hotel's basement. What was supposed to be a storage area became a refuge as the city above them transformed into a churning, debris-filled nightmare. Emergency lights flickered. Water seeped under doorways. The sound of the flood was deafening. Crashing, roaring, like the earth itself was being torn apart. Terror gripped everyone in that concrete tomb. Strangers huddled together, praying the walls would hold. Children cried. Adults tried to project calm while their eyes betrayed pure fear. In that darkness, filled with rising water and failing hope, only one voice kept Mara from falling apart. Hey! Look at me. We're going to be okay. She'd turned toward the voice. A man sat beside her, his expensive suit soaked and ruined, his hair plastered to his forehead. But his eyes, those impossibly kind green eyes, held steady. I'm Grant, he said simply. Mara. Nice to meet you, Mara. Under better circumstances, I'd offer to buy you a drink. But I think the bar upstairs is currently underwater. Despite everything, she'd laughed. A short, desperate sound that broke the grip of panic just enough to breathe. They talked for hours. There was nothing else to do but wait and hope. In that stripped-down moment, with death possibly waiting outside, pretense became pointless. They shared truths they'd never told anyone. Grant talked about his childhood. Growing up poor, watching his father work 3 jobs and still lose their house. How that desperation had fueled his ambition. How he'd clawed his way into business school, started his first company with borrowed money, and was on the verge of something big. Really big. I'm scared I'll mess it up, he admitted, his voice raw. That I'll end up like my dad. Broken and bitter. Mara shared her own story. Parents who died when she was 19. Working her way through college. Dreams of running her own event planning business someday. The loneliness of building a life with no family to celebrate the victories or soften the failures. Sometimes I feel invisible, she whispered. Like I could disappear and nobody would notice for weeks. Grant's hand found hers in the darkness. I see you, Mara. I see you. When the rescue teams finally broke through, they emerged into a transformed city. Buildings collapsed. Cars overturned. The smell of mud and destruction everywhere. Survivors stumbled through debris, searching for loved ones. In the chaos of reunification centers and insurance claims and trying to piece together shattered lives, Mara and Grant found each other one more time. They spent the night at an emergency shelter. Not talking much. Just holding on to each other. 2 people who'd survived something terrible, seeking comfort in the only way that made sense. Then morning came. Grant's phone, miraculously still working, exploded with messages. His business partners. Investors. The deal he'd been working on was still happening, but he needed to be in New York immediately. I have to go, he said, pulling away from her. This opportunity, it won't wait. I understand. Mara replied, even though she didn't. Not really. I'll call you. I promise. But he never asked for her number. And in the confusion, the exhaustion, the trauma of everything that had happened, Mara never gave it. He left. And she never saw him again. 3 weeks later, Mara stood in her tiny bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines. Pregnant. Her hands shook as she sank to the floor. She was alone. Completely alone. No family. No support system. And somewhere out there was a man whose last name she didn't even know. Grant. Just Grant. She searched. God, how she searched. Social media. Business directories. Every lead she could find. But Grant was a common name. And without more information, he might as well have been a ghost. The ultrasound revealed the truth that changed everything. Congratulations, the technician said, smiling. You're having twins. Mara had cried then. Not tears of joy, but of overwhelming terror. 1 baby seemed impossible. 2 felt like a cosmic joke. She made decisions quickly after that. Left the city and all its painful memories. Found Willow Creek, a small town where nobody asked too many questions. Got a job at Harbor Bell Cafe. Built a life measured in small mercies. Rent paid on time. Groceries stretched across 2 weeks. Twins who thrived despite having only one parent. She never dated. Never let anyone close enough to ask uncomfortable questions. The regulars at Harbor Bell knew her as polite but private, devoted but distant. Old Mrs. Chen from the bookshop next door occasionally babysat, always paying in baked goods and hand-me-down children's books. You're a good mother, Mara, she'd say, patting her hand. Those girls are lucky. Marcus, the young line cook, sometimes slipped the twins extra bacon, winking when Mara pretended not to notice. But Mara kept everyone at arm's length. Terrified that closeness would somehow shatter the fragile stability she'd created. The cafe door chimed. Mara's practiced smile was already in place as she turned, coffee pot in hand. Welcome to Harbor Bell, I'll be right. The words died in her throat. 6 years dissolved in an instant. The expensive suit was different, perfectly tailored now instead of flood-damaged. The confident posture more pronounced. But the eyes. Those impossibly kind eyes that had promised her safety in a flooded basement. They were exactly the same. Grant Holloway stood in the doorway of her cafe, rainwater darkening the shoulders of what was probably a suit worth more than her annual salary. He was scanning the room with the distracted air of someone checking off a business obligation. Not really seeing the faded linoleum or the mismatched chairs or the hand-drawn menu board. Not seeing her. Until he did. Recognition hit him like a physical force. Mara watched his expression shift from polite neutrality to shock to something that looked painfully close to wonder. His lips formed her name, though no sound emerged. Mommy? Luna's voice cut through the impossible moment. You're spilling coffee. Mara looked down. Hot liquid pooled on the counter, spreading toward the edge. Her hands shook so badly she could barely set the pot down. I've got it. Marcus called from the kitchen, already moving with a towel. But his eyes were on Mara, concerned and protective. Grant took a step forward. Then another. The cafe's ambient noise, conversations, clinking silverware, the old radio playing classic rock, seemed to fade into white noise. Mara. Just her name. Said in that voice she remembered from the darkness. Steady. Warm. Real. She couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. 6 years of carefully constructed walls threatened to crumble with a single word. Mama? This time it was Ivy, tugging at her apron. "Are you okay?" Grant's gaze dropped to the little girl. Really looked at her. Mara watched the exact moment comprehension began to dawn. The way his eyes widened. How his face went pale beneath his tan. The sharp intake of breath. Ivy stared back at him with unguarded curiosity. Then she tilted her head in that particular way she did when puzzling through something complicated. Something important. "Mommy," Ivy said loudly enough that nearby conversations paused. "Why does that man look like my daddy?" The cafe went silent. Forks stopped mid-bite. Newspapers lowered. The espresso machine's hiss seemed deafening in the sudden quiet. Luna scrambled out of the booth, moving to her sister's side. She studied Grant with the same intense focus, and Mara could see her mind working. Comparing features. Connecting dots that shouldn't exist. "He has our eyes," Luna whispered, but in the silence, everyone heard. Then Ivy did the unthinkable. She walked straight up to Grant, tiny hand reaching for his, and said with the absolute certainty only a 5-year-old could possess. "Daddy, you came back." Time stopped. Grant stared down at the small hand in his. At the little girl with his eyes, his dimples, even the small birthmark on her left wrist that matched his own. His voice came out strangled. "Mara. Are they?" "Don't." Mara's voice cracked. She moved toward the twins, desperate to protect them from this moment, this exposure, this shattering of everything she'd built. "Don't say another word." But phones were already out. Videos recording. The moment spreading beyond her control. Mrs. Chen, sitting at her usual corner table, gasped audibly. "Oh my lord. Mara, is that Marcus?" Mara's voice rose with panic. "Can you watch the girls? Please. I have to." "Of course." Marcus was already moving, gently guiding Luna and Ivy toward the kitchen. "Come on, ladies. Let's see if we can find some cookies back here." "But Mama," Ivy protested, looking back at Grant with confused hope. "Just for a minute, baby. Please." Grant hadn't moved. He stood in the center of the cafe, looking like a man who'd just had his entire world rewritten. Mara grabbed her coat from behind the counter. "Outside. Now." She didn't wait to see if he followed. She pushed through the door into the rain, her breath coming in short gasps. The cold drops hit her face, mixing with tears she didn't remember starting to cry. Grant followed seconds later, the door swinging shut behind him. "Mara, I don't understand. Those girls. They look like you?" Mara spun to face him, fury and fear and 6 years of exhaustion pouring out. "Yes, Grant. They look like you. Because they are yours." The rain poured harder. Grant stood frozen, processing information his brain couldn't quite accept. "But how? When? When do you think?" Mara's voice dripped with bitter sarcasm. "That night. After the flood. The night you promised to call and then vanished like you never existed." "I didn't know," Grant whispered. "Mara, I swear, I didn't know." "Because you didn't ask." Mara shot back. "You didn't give me your number. You didn't give me your last name. You just left. I thought. The deal. I had to. You had to abandon me?" Mara's voice rose. "You had to make a choice between your business and a woman you spent one night with, and you chose money." "I get it, Grant. I understood it then. But don't you dare stand here now and act like you're the victim." Grant ran his hands through his wet hair, looking lost in a way that would have moved her 6 years ago. Now it just made her angrier. "I tried to find you," Mara continued, her voice breaking. Do you know that? I searched for weeks. Grant from the flood. Grant who survived the basement. Grant who promised he saw me. But there were hundreds of Grants. Thousands. And I had no way to know which one was you. What are their names? Grant asked quietly. The question caught Mara off guard. What? Their names. Please. Mara wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite her fury. Luna and Ivy. They're 5. They'll be 6 in March. 5 years old. Grant repeated, doing the math. I've missed 5 years. You've missed everything. Mara said flatly. First steps. First words. Sleepless nights and emergency room visits and birthday parties. You've missed every single moment that mattered. Let me fix it. You can't fix it, Grant. You can't buy back time. I can try. Grant stepped closer, his voice urgent. I can support them. Financially, I mean. College funds. A house. Whatever you need. I don't need your money. Mara's voice turned ice cold. I've raised them just fine without it. I can see that. Grant said softly. They're beautiful, Mara. They look healthy and happy and loved. You've done an incredible job. The compliment felt like a slap. Don't patronize me. I'm not. I'm stating a fact. You've done what I should have been here to help with. And God, Mara, I don't know how to make this right. The rain had soaked through both their clothes now. Mara shivered, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming her anger. I don't know if you can make it right, she admitted. But those girls in there? They deserve to know their father. So if you're serious, if you're actually going to stick around this time, we can talk about it. I'm serious. Grant said immediately. Whatever it takes. DNA test if you want proof. Legal agreements. I'll do whatever makes you comfortable. I don't want proof. Mara said tiredly. I know they're yours. I've always known. Through the cafe window, she could see Luna and Ivy watching them, faces pressed against the glass. Marcus stood behind them, one protective hand on each small shoulder. They're watching. Grant observed. They've been watching their whole lives. Mara replied. Watching other kids with fathers. Asking questions I couldn't answer. Wondering why they weren't enough for their daddy to stay. Grant flinched as if she'd struck him. Mara. Tomorrow. Mara interrupted. Come to my house tomorrow at 6. We'll talk properly. Set boundaries. Figure out how this is going to work. If it's going to work. She pulled a napkin from her pocket, scribbled an address in smeared ink. This is where we live. Small house on Maple Street. Nothing fancy. Grant took the napkin like it was something precious. I'll be there. Grant. Mara's voice stopped him as he turned to leave. If you do this. If you come into their lives now. You don't get to leave again. Not when it gets hard. Not when it's inconvenient. Not ever. Do you understand? I understand. Because I will survive you breaking my heart again. Mara continued, her voice fierce. But I will not let you break theirs. Grant met her eyes, and she saw something there she hadn't expected. Genuine remorse. Real understanding of what he'd cost them all. I won't break their hearts, he promised. Or yours. Not again. He walked back to his car, a sleek black vehicle that looked completely out of place on Willow Creek's modest streets. As he pulled away, Mara stood in the rain, watching him disappear. Then she turned back toward the cafe, where her daughters waited with 1,000 questions she didn't know how to answer. The story of Grant Holloway's secret children hit social media before Mara even made it back inside. Someone in the cafe had recorded the whole thing. Ivy's innocent declaration. The shocked silence. Phones captured it all. By evening, it was trending. Billionaire's secret twins exposed. Single mother's 6-year secret. Grant Holloway's hidden family. The headlines multiplied faster than Mara could process. Her phone, an old model that barely functioned on good days, buzzed itself into overheating. Messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Friend requests from strangers. News outlets requesting interviews. She turned it off and focused on the twins. Luna had retreated into unusual quietness, processing everything with the serious intensity she approached all of life's big questions. Ivy, always the more open of the two, couldn't stop talking. Is he really our daddy, Mama? He looked like us. Did you see? He had our eyes. When is he coming back? Does he know about my drawings? Does he like pancakes? We like pancakes. Mara tucked them into bed that night, lying between them like she had when they were babies and the world felt too big and frightening. Mama. Luna whispered into the darkness. Why didn't Daddy want us before? The question pierced Mara's heart. Oh baby. It wasn't that he didn't want you. He didn't know about you. Why didn't you tell him? How do you explain adult failures to a 5-year-old? I tried. Mara said carefully. But sometimes people lose each other. Not on purpose. Just because life is complicated and messy. Will he leave again? Ivy asked, her usual confidence wavering. Mara wanted to promise he wouldn't. But she'd learned that promises meant nothing if the person making them didn't keep their word. I don't know, sweetie. But I promise that no matter what, you'll always have me. Always. That night, after the twins finally fell asleep, Mara sat in her tiny living room and let herself cry. Not pretty tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that she muffled with a pillow so her daughters wouldn't hear. 6 years of holding everything together. 6 years of being strong enough for 2 people. 6 years of pretending she didn't need help. It all came pouring out. Across town, Grant Holloway sat in his hotel suite, unable to sleep. The penthouse suite at Redwood Heights' most exclusive hotel felt suffocating. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Luxury surrounded him. Everything money could buy. And none of it mattered. He pulled up the video on his phone. Watched it again. And again. Daddy, you came back. The trust in Ivy's voice destroyed him. She'd called him Daddy like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like she'd been waiting her whole life to say it. Grant thought back to that night 6 years ago. The flood. The darkness. Mara's hand in his. He'd meant to call her. He really had. But then the New York deal consumed everything. 16-hour days. Negotiations that couldn't wait. Building the foundation of what would become his empire. By the time he came up for air, weeks had passed. He'd convinced himself it was better this way. Cleaner. She'd been a beautiful moment in a terrible time, but moments weren't meant to last. He'd been wrong. So catastrophically, irreversibly wrong. His phone rang. Celeste Vaughn. His business partner and the orchestrator of tomorrow's major land acquisition deal. Have you seen the news? She asked without preamble. I'm aware. This is a disaster, Grant. The board is panicking. Investors are asking questions. We have a $50 million merger finalizing next week and you're trending on social media for having secret children? They're not secret anymore. That's not funny. I'm not joking, Celeste. They're my daughters. Silence on the other end of the line. Then, carefully controlled fury. You're sure? I'm sure. Then we need damage control. Immediately. I'll draft a statement. Something about privacy, moving forward, commitment to supporting them financially. No. Excuse me? I said no. Grant's voice was firm. I'm not letting PR spin doctors turn my daughters into a press release. Grant, be reasonable. This could tank our credibility. Then let it tank. Grant said quietly. Some things are more important than business. He hung up before Celeste could respond. For the first time in 15 years, Grant Holloway chose something other than his empire. The next evening, Grant pulled up to a small house on Maple Street precisely at 6 o'clock. The neighborhood was modest but well kept. Small yards with swing sets. Basketball hoops over garage doors. The kind of place where kids rode bikes until the streetlights came on. Mara's house was painted pale yellow with white shutters. Flower boxes sat empty in winter's grip. A small porch held 2 rocking chairs. This was where his daughters had grown up. Where they'd taken their first steps and said their first words and lived every moment of 5 years he'd missed. Grant sat in his car for a moment, gathering courage. Then he grabbed the gifts from the passenger seat. He'd spent hours selecting them. A coding kit for one twin. An art tablet for the other. He wasn't sure which gift was for which girl yet. He'd have to learn. The door opened before he knocked. Mara stood there, her hair pulled back, wearing jeans and a simple sweater. No makeup. Just herself. She looked tired but beautiful in a way that made Grant's chest ache. You came, she said. I said I would. She stepped aside to let him enter. The house was small but filled with warmth. Children's artwork covered the refrigerator. Toys organized in bins. Photographs everywhere. Grant's eyes caught on a framed picture of 2 newborns, tiny and fragile, cradled in Mara's arms. She looked exhausted and terrified and fiercely protective. That was the day we came home from the hospital. Mara said softly, following his gaze. I was so scared I'd drop them or forget to feed them or somehow mess up everything. You didn't. No. Mara agreed. I didn't. Footsteps thundered from upstairs. Is that him? A voice called. Girls. Mara's voice carried gentle warning. Remember what we talked about. Slow and calm. But Luna and Ivy appeared at the top of the stairs, staring down at Grant with identical expressions of curious hope. Hi. Grant said, his voice unsteady. I'm Grant. You're. I'm Grant. He couldn't say father. Hadn't earned it yet. Luna descended the stairs slowly, studying him with serious eyes. Why did you leave my mom? The question was direct and devastating. Luna. Mara started. It's okay. Grant interrupted gently. He knelt so he was at the girl's eye level. That's a fair question. And the answer is that I made a mistake. A really big mistake. I was scared and I thought other things were more important. But I was wrong. What's more important than family? Ivy asked. Nothing. Grant replied honestly. Absolutely nothing. And it took me way too long to figure that out. Ivy seemed to accept this. She moved closer, reaching out to touch his tie. This is shiny. Grant smiled despite the tears threatening to fall. Do you like shiny things? I like drawing shiny things. Mama says I'm good at art. Your mama's right. I bet you're amazing at art. Luna remained skeptical, her arms crossed. If you're our dad, where have you been for 5 years? Luna. Mara's voice held more warning this time. But Grant shook his head. No, she deserves an answer. Luna, I didn't know about you. Your mom tried to find me, but I didn't make it easy. And that's my fault. But now that I know, I'd like to be part of your life. If that's okay with you. Will you leave again? Luna asked. No. How do we know? Grant looked up at Mara, who watched this exchange with carefully controlled emotion. I guess you don't. Grant admitted. I guess I have to prove it by staying. By showing up. Not just once, but every time. Luna considered this. Then, slowly, she nodded. Okay. But if you leave, I'll be mad. That's fair. Dinner was awkward at first. Mara had made spaghetti, and they sat around a small kitchen table that barely fit 4 people. Grant tried to navigate the conversation carefully. So what do you like to do? For fun. I like soccer. Luna said. And reading. And science. I like art and music and playing pretend. Ivy added. What's your favorite color? Purple, they said in unison, then giggled. As the evening progressed, some of the tension eased. The twins warmed up slightly, asking their own questions. Do you have a big house? Pretty big. Can we see it? Grant glanced at Mara, who gave a small nod. Maybe sometime. After dinner, Grant presented the gifts. The coding kit went to Luna, who immediately began examining the components with intense focus. The art tablet went to Ivy, who gasped with delight. This is like what real artists use. Your mom mentioned you like to draw. Grant explained. Mara's eyebrows rose. When did I? In the cafe. Before. Before everything. She'd mentioned it in passing. A casual comment about Ivy's talent. The fact that he'd remembered, that he'd acted on it, seemed to soften something in her expression. At 8 o'clock, Mara announced bedtime. Can Grant tuck us in? Ivy asked. Mara looked uncertain. If that's okay with your mom. Grant said carefully. After a moment, Mara nodded. Just this once. Grant followed the twins upstairs to a small bedroom painted soft green. 2 twin beds with matching purple comforters. Drawings taped to every available wall surface. He sat on the edge of Luna's bed first. Thank you for giving me a chance, he said softly. Luna studied him with those serious eyes. Don't make us sad. I won't. I promise. He moved to Ivy's bed. She smiled up at him sleepily. I always knew you'd come back. How did you know? Because Mama kept your picture. Grant's breath caught. She did? Ivy nodded, pointing to a small frame on the dresser. Grant walked over. It was a photo from the flood night. Grainy, taken on someone's phone in the rescue center. Grant and Mara standing together, covered in mud, exhausted but alive. He'd never seen this picture before. Downstairs, Mara was washing dishes when Grant returned. They're amazing, he said. I know. You kept that photo. Mara's hands stilled in the soapy water. The girls asked about their father. I wanted them to know you were real. Not just a story I told them. Grant moved to stand beside her, picking up a dish towel. What did you tell them? About me? The truth. That we met during something terrible. That you were kind and brave. That you had to leave. You didn't tell them I abandoned you. They're 5, Grant. They don't need to carry that weight. They worked in silence for a moment. Then Mara spoke again. This doesn't fix everything. I know. And I meant what I said. If you're going to be in their lives, you have to be all in. Not just when it's convenient. I understand. Do you? Mara turned to face him, her eyes fierce. Because being a parent isn't glamorous. It's not photo ops and expensive gifts. It's staying up all night when they're sick. It's parent-teacher conferences and soccer practice and arguing about homework. It's the boring, exhausting, everyday stuff that actually matters. I want that. Grant said quietly. All of it. We'll see. Before Grant left that night, he made a promise. I'll be back this weekend. Saturday. If that's okay. Mara hesitated, then nodded. Saturday. Over the following weeks, Grant restructured his entire life. He canceled business trips. Delegated responsibilities. Shocked his executive team by declining the Seoul Conference, the biggest tech summit in Asia. Family commitment, he told his assistant Marissa, who stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Since when do you have family commitments? Grant placed 2 framed photos on his desk. Luna and Ivy, smiling at the camera. Since now. True to his word, Grant showed up every Saturday. Sometimes they went to the park. Sometimes they stayed home, teaching Grant the complicated rules of the twins' made-up games. Luna taught him about soccer, patiently explaining positions and strategies. Grant attended her games, cheering from the sidelines, learning the names of her teammates. Ivy showed him her art, each drawing carefully explained. Grant listened like she was presenting at a gallery opening. Slowly, carefully, they built something that started to resemble a family. But not everyone was happy about Grant's transformation. Celeste Vaughn watched her business partner's new priorities with growing fury. The Redwood Heights land acquisition, their biggest deal in years, was suffering. Grant kept missing meetings. Delaying decisions. Choosing family dinners over investor calls. When footage from the cafe went viral, Celeste saw an opportunity. She leaked additional photos to tabloids. Images from the flood night. Old records showing Mara's financial struggles. Headlines began to shift. Billionaire baby trap. Single mother's 6-year plan. Did she know who he was all along? The implication was clear. Mara was a gold digger who'd orchestrated everything. Grant's phone exploded with calls from PR teams, lawyers, concerned board members. You need to make a statement. Celeste insisted during an emergency meeting. Saying what? That you're conducting a paternity test. That you'll support the children if they're yours, but you're being cautious given the circumstances. No. Grant, be reasonable. This woman shows up after 6 years with twins and a story. You need to protect yourself. Mara didn't show up. Grant said coldly. I walked into her cafe. And I don't need to protect myself from my own children. You don't know for certain that they're yours. I know. But doubt crept in anyway. Not about paternity. Grant knew those were his daughters. But about Mara's motivations. Had she really tried to find him? Or had she seen his growing success and decided to stay hidden until the payout would be bigger? The thoughts made him sick, but he couldn't completely shake them. Then the charity gala invitation arrived. Redwood Heights annual event. The most exclusive gathering of the year. Politicians, business leaders, society elite. Celeste was being honored for her philanthropic work. She'd personally invited Grant, knowing he never missed it. This year, he almost declined. Until the phone call from Mara. I saw the articles. Her voice was tight with controlled fury. Mara, I'm handling it. Handling it? Grant, they're calling me a con artist. They're saying I trapped you. That I've been waiting 6 years for this moment. I know you didn't. Do you? The question hung heavy. Because there are an awful lot of people suggesting paternity tests and legal agreements. Your people, Grant. You're lawyers. That's not me talking. Then maybe you should talk louder. Silence stretched between them. The charity gala is Saturday. Grant said finally. Come with me. What? Come to the gala. Let me introduce you properly. Show everyone that I'm not ashamed of you or the girls. I don't belong at events like that. Yes, you do. As the mother of my children. Mara was quiet for a long moment. The twins? Mrs. Chen said she'd watch them. Another pause. Okay. Mara said finally. I'll go. The Redwood Heights Charity Gala was everything Mara had feared. She stood in front of her closet, staring at clothes that all screamed small-town waitress and none of which whispered billionaire's date. Mrs. Chen had helped with the twins, promising stories and cookies and bedtime songs. But that left Mara with nothing to wear and growing panic. A knock on the door revealed a delivery. A garment bag with a note in Grant's handwriting. Just in case. No pressure. Grant. Inside was a dress. Simple but elegant. Deep blue fabric that caught the light. Her size exactly. Mara wanted to be angry at the presumption. Instead, she found herself grateful. Grant picked her up at 7. His expression when he saw her made something flutter in her chest that she'd thought was long dead. You look beautiful. I look uncomfortable. That too. He smiled. For what it's worth, I'm uncomfortable at these things too. You're a billionaire. This is your world. No. Grant said quietly. This is business. You and the girls, that's becoming my world. The gala was held at the grand ballroom of the Redwood Heights Hotel. Chandeliers dripped crystal. Wait staff circulated with champagne. Everyone who was anyone had turned out. Mara felt eyes on her the moment they walked in. Whispers followed them like a wake. Is that her? The waitress? I heard she's been chasing him for years. Grant's hand found hers, squeezing gently. Ignore them. Easy for you to say. Grant introduced her to various people. Business associates. Investors. Most were polite to her face and clearly judgmental behind her back. Then Celeste Vaughn appeared. She was stunning in a way Mara could never be. Tall, elegant, confident. Her red dress probably cost more than Mara's car. Grant. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. So glad you could make it. Her gaze slid to Mara, assessing and dismissive in the same glance. And you must be the famous Mara. I've read so much about you. The emphasis on read made it clear she meant the tabloid articles. Celeste. Grant's voice held warning. I'm just saying hello. Celeste's smile sharpened. After all, we're practically family now, aren't we? Given your complicated situation. There's nothing complicated about it. Mara said evenly. Grant is the father of my children. Alleged father. Celeste corrected sweetly. Until a paternity test confirms it, of course. Grant stepped forward, his voice ice cold. That's enough, Celeste. I'm only thinking of your interests, darling. You've worked too hard to build this empire to have it threatened by. By what? Grant challenged. By my own children? By a woman you barely know making life-changing claims. The conversation around them had quieted. People were listening, watching the drama unfold. Mara felt her face burn. This was a mistake. She didn't belong here. She should never have come. Excuse me. She turned to leave. Grant caught her hand. Don't. Let me go, Grant. No. He said it loudly enough that more people turned. I'm not letting you walk away thinking any of this is your fault. Grant, people are staring. Good. Let them stare. Before Mara could respond, the evening's program began. Celeste was called to the stage for her award. She gave a gracious speech about giving back to the community, helping those less fortunate, being a role model for young women in business. The irony wasn't lost on Mara. Then, as Celeste finished and prepared to leave the stage, Grant stood. He walked to the podium, taking the microphone from a confused event coordinator. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Grant said, his voice carrying through the ballroom. "But there's something I need to say." Mara's heart stopped. Grant's eyes found hers across the crowd. "6 years ago, I survived something terrible. A flood that destroyed our city. And in the darkest moment of that night, I met someone who showed me what real courage looks like." The room had gone completely silent. Her name is Mara Ellis. And tonight, people have questioned her character, her motivations, her honesty. So I want to make something absolutely clear. Grant's voice strengthened. The twins you've all read about are mine. Luna and Ivy. They're 5 years old. They like purple and pancakes and asking questions I don't always know how to answer. They're smart and funny and kind because their mother raised them to be. Mara felt tears streaming down her face. I wasn't there for their birth. I wasn't there for their first steps or their first words. I missed 5 years because I was too focused on building an empire to notice I was leaving behind everything that actually mattered. Grant looked directly at Celeste. Mara didn't trap me. She didn't con me. She survived something traumatic, found out she was pregnant, tried to contact me, and when she couldn't, she raised 2 children alone while I collected awards and pretended I was successful. His gaze swept the room. If anyone here questions her integrity, they can answer to me. Because that woman has more strength, more dignity, and more genuine worth than everyone in this room combined. He stepped away from the podium and walked straight to Mara. "I'm sorry," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I should have done this weeks ago." He took her hand in front of everyone. "I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm asking for the chance to earn it. From you, from Luna and Ivy, from everyone I let down." The room erupted. Some applauded. Others looked scandalized. Cameras flashed. Celeste's face had gone pale with fury. But Mara only saw Grant. "Take me home," she whispered. They left the gala to a storm of camera flashes and shouted questions. By morning, Grant's speech had gone viral. Billionaire defends baby mama. Grant Holloway chooses family over empire. The speech that broke the internet. Public opinion shifted overnight. What had been a scandal became a love story. A tale of redemption. Grant's phone exploded with interview requests. Book deals. Movie offers. He ignored all of them. Instead, he showed up at Mara's house the next morning with coffee and apologies. "I should have protected you from all that," he said. "You did protect me," Mara replied. "Last night. In front of everyone. It wasn't enough." "Grant." Mara's voice was soft. "Nothing will ever be enough to make up for 5 years. But showing up? Consistently? That's a start." Over the following months, Grant proved he meant every word. He relocated part of his business to Willow Creek. Bought a house 3 streets over from Mara's. Close enough to be present, far enough to respect boundaries. He attended every soccer game. Every parent-teacher conference. Every dentist appointment and school play. He learned that Luna was afraid of thunderstorms and needed the light on to sleep. That Ivy refused to eat anything green unless you called it emerald food. That Mara took her coffee black and hated mornings and worried constantly about money even though she'd never ask for help. DNA results came back 99.99% match. Though everyone already knew. Grant set up college funds for both girls. Established a trust. Made sure Mara would never have to worry about bills again. But more than money, he gave time. Celeste's business influence collapsed after the gala. Investors questioned her judgment. Partners distanced themselves. Grant's empire thrived. Not because he worked 100-hour weeks, but because he'd learned to delegate, to trust his team, to remember why success mattered in the first place. One Saturday, 6 months after that first day in the cafe, Grant arrived to find Luna crying. "What's wrong?" He knelt beside her. "Sarah at school said you're not my real dad because you weren't there when I was born." Mara started to intervene, but Grant shook his head gently. "Sarah's right about one thing," Grant said carefully. "I wasn't there when you were born. And I hate that I missed it. But Luna, being a real dad isn't about where you were at the beginning. It's about where you show up every day after. Will you always show up? Always. I promise." Luna studied him with those serious eyes. "Okay." She climbed into his lap, tucking her head under his chin. "I love you, Dad." It was the first time she'd called him that. Grant's arms tightened around her, tears streaming down his face. "I love you too, sweetheart." Across the room, Mara watched with her own tears falling. That evening, after the twins were asleep, Mara and Grant sat on her porch. "Thank you," Mara said quietly. "For what?" "For staying. For proving me wrong about you." "Mara." Grant turned to face her. "I know I don't deserve it, but... is there any chance? For us?" "Grant. I'm not asking you to forgive 6 years overnight. I'm just asking if, someday, we might try again. As more than co-parents." Mara looked at him. Really looked. At the man who'd held her hand in the darkness. Who'd left. Who'd come back. Who'd chosen to stay. "Ask me again in a year," she said finally. "If you're still showing up. If you've proven this isn't temporary. Ask me then." "Okay." Grant nodded. "I can wait." "And Grant?" Mara smiled slightly. "I thought love had to be quiet to survive. I was wrong. It just has to be honest." 1 year later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Grant Holloway took Mara Ellis to the riverfront where Willow Creek's annual festival was happening. Luna and Ivy ran ahead, chasing each other through fallen leaves, their laughter carrying on the wind. "Remember what you told me?" Grant asked. "To ask again in a year?" "I remember." "It's been a year. I've shown up for soccer games and school plays. For midnight stomach bugs and homework meltdowns. For ordinary Tuesdays and special occasions. You have. So I'm asking." Grant's voice shook slightly. "Mara Ellis, would you consider giving us a real chance? Not just for the girls, but for us?" Mara looked at the man beside her. Imperfect. Flawed. But present. Consistent. Real. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I would." Their kiss was witnessed by 2 delighted 6-year-olds who immediately demanded to know if this meant they could have a real family now. "You've always been a real family," Mara told them, pulling them both close. "We're just figuring out what that looks like." "Does this mean we get a dog?" Ivy asked hopefully. Grant laughed. "We'll talk about it." As the sun set over Willow Creek, casting golden light across the river, Mara realized something profound. Family isn't built by perfection or promises. It's built by showing up. Again and again. Through mistakes and corrections. Through fear and courage. Through endings and new beginnings. Grant had missed 5 years. Nothing would ever change that. But he was here now. And now, Mara had learned, was the only place where real life actually happened. If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What would you have done in Mara's position? Have you ever gotten a second chance you didn't think you deserved? Share your thoughts below. And if you believe in the power of redemption and second chances, please hit that like button and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories for more powerful, life-changing narratives that remind us what truly matters. Because at the end of the day, success means nothing if you're successful alone. Family isn't about where you start. It's about where you choose to show up, every single day. Thank you for watching, and remember, it's never too late to choose what really matters.